Hmm. Okay, we're live. We'll go ahead and wait just a few more minutes before we get started, but we do want to make sure we use the whole time. All righty, we are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Katrina from Kale. We're so glad to have you join us for this session, one of the first sessions of the first day of Kale 2025 conference. This one is Reimagining Career Pathways in the Gulf Coast region, specifically for adults and youth and economic mobility. And so thank you guys for being here. Today in this session, we have our speakers. We have Juliet Stipetch. She's the Executive Director for Workforce Solutions in the Gulf Coast. And then we also have Leanne Arnold. She's the Senior Director of Outreach Strategies. So thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this first session. We're really excited to be here at Kale, where so many people are devoted to building stronger pathways and between education, training, and careers. And that's certainly what we're trying to do here in our region, which is expand opportunity for adults. And just for clarification, I am Leanne Arnold, and Juliet here is the Executive Director of the Gulf Coast Workforce Board. We've asked ourselves a pretty daunting question over the last few years, and that is, how do you align 3 state agencies, 13 counties, and thousands of employers around the needs of adult learners in an evolving economy? So by the end of this session, what you'll have, we hope, is a clearer picture of what that looks like on the ground, what's working, what's been really hard and challenging, and what might be transferable to your own regions. So let's start by taking a quick look at who we are and the region we serve. The Gulf Coast region of Texas is a reflection of Texas itself. It's enormous. It spans 13 counties, and it includes Houston, which is the nation's 4th largest city and one of the, if not the most diverse cities in the country. So while it's anchored by Houston's global economy and global industries like energy and healthcare, it also includes really large industrial centers like Baytown and Texas City, and fast-growing and affluent suburbs in adjacent counties like Fort Bend and Montgomery, and then also several rural counties that are largely agricultural. So the region reflects every age group, every background and level of education. And that diversity is a strength for us, but it also means that pathways into good jobs look very different depending on where people live and the resources that are available to them. So over the past few years, we've had this really sustained population growth and sustained employment growth, but that growth hasn't been, sort of reached everyone equally. And it's sort of that reality that led the board to strengthen its efforts on how the workforce system operates in the region. So since Juliet is the executive director of that board that serves this huge area, I want to turn this over to her to talk a little bit more about the board itself.
Thanks, Leanne. As you can see in the photograph on the slide, we've got a very large board. Our board is one of the largest in the state of Texas. There are 28. We're actually number 28, and we're the largest. We're one of the largest in the country. We have a very diverse array of folks that are appointed by local elected officials to serve on the board. So we have representatives from the K through 12 system, post-secondary institutions, private companies, and our board chair has to be a representative from a private company. And we also have labor unions and early childhood education. So it's a nice, amazing microcosm of our community. Our annual budget hovers about $500 million, and the board has a mission to help employers meet their workforce needs and individuals build careers so both can compete in a global economy. And we also have a vision statement, which is to strengthen business and industry, drive the economic growth of our region, and create thriving, inclusive communities where everyone has an opportunity to earn, learn, and prosper. And so Workforce Solutions Gulf Coast serves as the operational affiliate. We have 25 offices conveniently located across this 13 county region. And so we really rely on partnerships from our service providers to employers to a diverse array of persons in our community. Serving a region this size is demanding and has both challenges and great opportunities. So let's talk a little bit about the challenges and gaps first. So, the education and workforce systems in our area often operate in silos. We have the Texas Education Agency, the Higher Ed Coordinating Board, and the Texas Workforce Commission, which handle huge institutions that try to align education from every level, from cradle to career. However, there's not a lot of synergy and conversations that have been going on in years past. So there's now a conscientious effort that the Workforce Board and others in this tri-agency initiative are trying to say, how can we work better together to make sure that we instill lifelong learning with the funds and resources and partnerships that we have together? And so we also notice that in this area, there's often weak handoffs. When young people may stop out or individuals may graduate from a program, but they're not necessarily well connected to employment. The need and the importance of earning credits to be able to find a great career is absolutely critical. And so we're looking at a system where we have a very young population, where we're looking at the vast majority of the population being between 29 and 43, a very, very fast growing Latino population. In the Latino population, nearly 80% do not have a post-secondary degree. And so we also have the Latino community with a significant number not graduating from high school as well. And so industry recognized certifications are also low. And so that's the baseline that we start from, and the reason that this alignment is absolutely critical. And so, learning from Kale, bringing partners together to support lifelong learning, especially for those adults, is absolutely critical. And so we are going to talk a little bit more about what that means. So I'll go ahead and pass it back to Leanna.
Yes, so we wanted to make this session really interactive. So before we go any further, we'd like to start using a few series of Slido polls that we're going to do throughout this session so that we get your perspectives back. And I want to start with the first one. So if you'll pick up your phones and just scan the QR code on the screen to join in, we'll give everyone a moment to do that. And we'll leave this up for a moment, but we want to get a sense of the room and have you answer this question in your own regions. What makes alignment the hardest? Is it communication, just keeping everyone on the same page? Is it funding and how resources flow through different systems? Or is it the culture itself, different mission languages between education and workforce, for instance? Wow. I was expecting more of a mix. I think that we actually have found that communication is in our case has been a really big place for us to start, but and the culture change also being a really big lift for us. But funding is certainly the basis for everything, and a challenge. And coming from a funding background myself, I know that's the case. I want to talk now a little bit about how the board began aligning some systems at scale and get into the meat of what we really want to talk about today with these partnerships. And that is something called the Tri-HTC Initiative.
So just briefly, prior to serving as the executive director of the Gulf Coast Workforce Board, I also served as the trustee for the Houston Independent School District Board of Education. And I tell folks, while I served on the school board, I knew nothing about the workforce system. And one of the first times I learned about workforce solutions was when I had the opportunity to work for Mayor Sylvester Turner at the City of Houston as his director of education. And I often thought, how in the world can we get the K through 12 system, the post-secondary institution, and the workforce system to start collaborating with one another? And so fortunately, the state of Texas has come up with a framework called the Tri-Agency Workforce Initiative. It's actually the governor who has charged these 3 institutions to start working together. And it is a challenge. It's, trying to get different people speaking similar words to align and understand the mission and vision of trying to align both an understanding of how we can better braid and connect resources, serving as bridges to help people succeed in careers, right? And so, this framework, the board has used the Tri-Agency Initiative as a framework, and we've also been included in this type of education and training model that the state of Texas has allowed us to participate in. And so we have been formally designated as a Tri-Agency regional convener. And so that allows us as the workforce board to start braiding in these dollars and working with the different agencies, bringing education, workforce, and industry leaders to translate those state goals into regional action. And so what makes a difference is that it aligns these very high-level state goals with regional implementation. It assists us in institutionalizing this change in formal policy and also having an opportunity to get funding, whether it's from the TEA or the Higher Ed Coordinating Board. And so, that gives you an opportunity to start to engage in conversations with one another and start having a shared rhetoric, a shared mission, a shared vision to serve all learners to the best of your ability. And so with that framework in mind, think about how you can start engaging in those types of activities in your own region as well.
All right, let's get some more feedback. When you think about your own region, which partner is the hardest to align? Is it employers, K-12 and higher ed, workforce agencies, or community partners? Let's see.
So that's an interesting spread. It's 100% K through 12 higher ed. I'm surprised by we got some more people coming through.
Good.
Okay, there we go. So we've got some more, but still, I guess the first one is demonstrating that the K through 12 higher ed is the one that poses the challenge. So, embedding this work in formal plans is how we move from project to policy, and we look at how it's important for us to try to engage better relationships with these various partners.
Yeah, I think, for us, employers were the hardest thing to bring in. But once we really, sort of made the transformation about how involving them in the design and delivery, they became really engaged. And the kind of feedback they gave is what helped us reshape the training programs for both learners and workers. So embedding this sort of this work into formal plans is how we move from projects really to policy. I want to talk for a moment about the board's strategic plan. This has been such a critical element of this work. So one of the main reasons this work has had real traction is because it's built into the board's own direction and its own priorities. It's not something that sort of sits alongside them. The tri-agency work that Juliet has been talking about is anchored in 2 documents: the board's 5-year strategic plan, which was adopted last year, and the WIOA plan, which is our federal compliance plan. And this really matters because when something's written into these frameworks, it becomes how the system operates. It shapes what gets measured, what gets funded, and what we hold ourselves accountable for. And so when the board began this strategic planning process, we started with a really basic but important question, and that is, what does this big region need from its workforce system over the next 5 years in order to move the needle? So to answer that, we cast a really wide net. We weren't interested in just internal discussions among board members or close partners that already worked with the board and with Workforce Solutions. We gathered input from across all 13 counties, from employers, from community colleges, from K-12, chambers of commerce, economic development councils, community organizations, both urban and rural. We conducted focus groups and dozens of interviews. We surveyed almost 1,000 service providers and board staff. We did quantitative and qualitative analysis, and importantly, we did thematic analysis as well, so we could really capture the nuance in the responses of these survey questions. We talked to employers about hiring challenges and their future needs. We heard from educators about the gaps. We heard from community organizations about the barriers that are keeping adults from career success, like childcare and transportation and other wraparound supports. And out of that process came 4 strategic goals that frame everything the board does going forward. The first is supporting business forward solutions. So to make sure that employers are true partners in this design and delivery of services, because you're not going to get anywhere if you're pushing services on someone and it is not a good fit. Being a convener is the second goal, which is to bring in a lot of what like Kayla is doing, is to bring industry, education, community partners together around a common goal of supporting adult learners. The third is increasing awareness and access, which is expanding the visibility of workforce services and career pathways so we know where to engage and how to engage people, which in a region of our size requires a lot of sub-regional approaches to meet people where they are. The last goal is improving service delivery through innovation and technology, and that is improving the customer experience and modernizing how people access services, how they access training and other resources. So these goals, I share them with you because they guide every major initiative that the board takes on, and the tri-agency work connects directly to each one of them. It's, for instance, how we live out the convener role, bringing together education and industry. It advances business forward solutions because it aligns training with what employers need. And it pushes innovation, for instance, by using shared data to better understand how adults move through education and work. And so we see where we can have impact. So when we talk about this tri-agency work initiative, it isn't just something that sits on top of this work, it's how we actually achieve these goals. And because the work is embedded, we now see that alignment show up everywhere. It's in our performance metrics where business engagement and credential attainment and equity indicators are tracked, easily measured side by side. It's in our funding priorities, which direct the investments towards high-value training and employer partnerships. And it's in a brand new council called the Regional Coordination Council, where service providers, partners, and leadership staff are going to meet monthly to stay aligned with one another. And that's really the point, right? Alignment isn't something that happens by accident. It has to be built into the strategy. It has to be informed by the people who live and work here in the region, and it has to be carried out consistently. So that structure is what keeps alignment from being just a great idea and become part of the board's roadmap and something that we can now build on year after year.
Yeah, so looking at the data, the data is a game changer. It serves as a bridge. It's really helped us in terms of making sure that we get input and understanding of what's happening in the community, so that way we're designing and developing strategies that make sense for those that we serve. We heard from countless people saying that they had no idea what the workforce board does. They didn't know where our offices were. And so we realized that we really had to be intentional about new ways of meeting people where they are. And so the cross-agency data shows us, what's happening in our community, where people are falling through the cracks. We also have maps that will show us heat maps of where there are high areas of unemployment, or where there are inequities and gaps in services and situations along those lines. And so we've had partnerships also with other organizations, such as the University of Houston's Education Research Center, which has a large database from the tri-agency, so we can actually go to one partner to pull lifelong data on individuals. And so it's allowed us to look at these data sets to say, how have these different interventions and investments over time made an impact on the lives of individuals? And so that shows us where they're getting lost in the systems, where there are gaps, things and trends that we haven't seen before, and what we can do to better solve problems in real time based on the data that is coming from the community to us.
Yeah, being able to see someone's journey from K-12 to college has just been invaluable. I'd love to see where your regions stand on a scale of 1 to 10 for this next poll. How connected are your education and workforce data systems today?
Oh, wow.
Yes. Not as much connection as we would like, right? I think there's a range, but and that's really normal. But look, even in Texas and in this region, we're still building those bridges. What matters, I think, is not just linking the data, but using it to inform design and equity decisions. When these systems begin talking to each other, then learners can stop falling through the cracks. But once we understand where adults and students were falling through this really granular data, then we understood better where we can act. And that insight has become the foundation for building the pipeline from not just with adults, but from youth to career.
So, yeah, I'm super excited to show you about information regarding our Higher Gulf Coast Youth Program. And so let's talk about the front end of the pipeline, youth. So, youth engagement is a very a critical on-ramp for adult pathways. And so our Higher Gulf Coast Youth Initiative connects students directly with employers, work-based learning, and high-demand sectors. In this photo, you'll see a picture of one of our regional convener conferences where we brought employers to come in and talk to the youth about their experiences, how they found their careers, and the students found this to be the most interesting part of the entire day. It was actually seeing people from the community like themselves that could talk about how they navigated to get from point A to point B, from schooling to success, the challenges and opportunities faced in their lives. And so it was a great opportunity for the students also to share their experiences with the adult employers as well. And so what you have in this convening is an opportunity for youth and adults to start learning from one another and creating a more dynamic synergy between the two communities and breaking down those silos as well. And so what we've noticed is that this program does allow for summer jobs, and we're also developing year-round employment opportunities for our youth in the workforce system. But it also allows us to develop stronger relationships with employer partners so that way they can learn about our system as well. So that way we can create a pipeline where we can work with the K through 12 system, so that way we can feed a pipeline of talent and have employers starting to work with high schools and middle schools and even elementary schools to talk about career opportunities in high skills, high growth, targeted industries in the region. And then also start to talk to the employers about challenges that we have been able to identify from the data sets that we've developed. So a youth employment program isn't one that is just serving youth. It's actually empowering the entire system. So that way we can create stronger pathways for lifelong learning, whatever input they're coming in from. If it's through the K through 12 system, if it's through the community, if it's through the upper higher ed, or if it's through workforce, it gives us an opportunity to develop a system where we have an ecosystem of adult training, employers, and education partners. And behind all of it, of course, is a dashboard with labor market insights showing students and educators what opportunities actually exist right here in their community.
So let's do another pulse check here. On a scale of 1 to 5, how intentional is your region in connecting youth programs to adult pathways? Is there no coordination at all, or does it go all the way up to, are you already having a fully integrated youth system and a seamless system? We'll give you just a moment. Okay, so if you answered at the low end, I think that's probably really common. Youth and adult systems are often funded separate, and managed separately, which makes integration really tough. I think when you start treating youth, as Juliet mentioned, as part of this talent pipeline, it's the front end of the pipeline and not a side project, everything starts to click. Employers kind of start to see the continuity. Students start to see the possibility that she mentioned at the convener conference, where they can actually see themselves in someone else who's been successful. And the programs, really begin to reinforce one another. Now that we've talked about data and youth, let's zoom out a moment and take another poll. Where does your region have the strongest momentum right now? Is it with youth or adults or with employers? Wow.
Wow, it's an even split. Wait,
I know,
change it up.
It's like a horse race. Employer engagement, interesting. Interesting. That's great to see. I mean, one of the things that becomes, the engine that powers the other for us was employer engagement. That's really interesting to hear. Once the employers, as I mentioned before, began co-designing the training and the work-based learning, it really created momentum and a lot of strength in the pipeline for both youth and adults. I'm curious where the adults and youth, if somebody changed their mind
Yeah.
on here. But yeah, let's talk a little bit more about how we went from this data we mentioned into design itself.
So I'll say before we started engaging in this work, we had systems that were totally disconnected. And a lot of the funding that we had for youth opportunities went unexpended. And so it was really sad to see that, oftentimes WIOA youth funding it just kind of sat there, and we, had a really hard time engaging young people, trying to conduct that outreach. And so sometimes we created smaller pilot programs. But once we launched this larger initiative called Higher Gulf Coast Youth and tied it into the Tri-Agency Initiative, utilizing data, we were able to really have a strong partnership and development with local superintendents and leaders in the ISDs. Now, one thing I want to say, in this region, we have 13 counties, we have 88 school districts. We have several large education service centers, and we have so many different investments in different types of CTE programs. And you also have a wide, vast array of community colleges, post-secondary institutions, both 2-year and 4-year institutions. And then you have, Houston's economy with healthcare, building and construction in different areas. But we consistently heard people say, one, they could not find enough people to hire for the various jobs that were available in the community. 2, we had school districts that were saying, we have all these young people, we have all these CTE programs, and we have students that desperately want to work. And then, me coming in as a new executive director, I was like, we have funding, we have people, and we're not spending the money. And so I was like, there's something inherently wrong when there's that type of disconnect. And so it took a while, for us. It basically, in strong part is sitting down and breaking bread with partners and being vulnerable, sharing data, and saying, how can we work together to strengthen our system as a whole? So, we started examining, one, we're going to work with employers to get more jobs into our system. And those jobs are available both for young people, but we're also going to engage our adults that are looking for work to those companies. 2, we're going to look at how we can work with employers to design and develop pre-apprenticeship and registered apprenticeship programs. And that way we can be co-designers in the creation of a system that makes sense for both partners. And what we see sometimes is when school districts or even post-secondary institutions create programs without employer input, you see challenges. So I'll give you one example. This was when I was on the Houston ISD school board. There was a local community college that got wind that a company was going to need 100 welders for hiring for a large project. So the community college reached out to other partners, and they trained 100 people to become welders. Unfortunately, they trained them in the wrong type of welding. So not one single person that was trained was hired, and they ended up having to hire and bring in people from the Philippines for a fast track project. So that was an example that always just was stayed just melded in my mind. I was like, we cannot have training that's a training on a road to nowhere. We have to always have this opportunity to have these conversations, to build things together, because we're stronger together. And that is a perfect example. We've also, worked on developing, for instance, and all these conversations that we've been having with the school districts and creating higher Gulf Coast youth and registered apprenticeships. We'd also talk to them about their employment challenges. We have a huge issue with not having enough certified teachers, right? And this is in this 88 school districts, not including charters and private schools and early childhood education in our region. So in these conversations of working with the school districts, we've also started designing and developing a teacher apprenticeship program. And so the workforce board fell into that almost by happenstance, using on-the-job training dollars for paraprofessionals who are interested in becoming teachers. And so we started braiding those resources and working with post-secondary institutions to serve as the trainers of record, and designed one of the first registered apprenticeship programs for teachers in the state of Texas, and one of the first in the country. And so from that opportunity, we are now receiving funding from the Houston Endowment to create a whole new cohort over the next 3 years of piloting this opportunity of using registered apprenticeship program as a means of filling this teacher talent pipeline challenge that we have in our region. Another example from the Tri-Agency Initiative with some of the work that we worked with a local hospital system to hire students over the summer to experience a rotational internship. And many of these students had completed CTE courses in healthcare at high school. And they were about to transition to college, but many of them, had some challenges with the transition from high school to college. They weren't necessarily sure if they were going to go into the healthcare career because they hadn't experienced hands-on paid employment. And so this funding allowed us to create a program where they actually had the students go in rotational experiences throughout the hospital. They had paid employment, and by the end, every single one of the students, they were hired by the hospital system, and the hospital system paid for their continuing education opportunity. And so we tell folks, it's like opening up the doors of opportunity is oftentimes just allowing conversations to take place. And sometimes, I'll give you one more example. Boeing, which is a large company that builds airplanes and sends rockets into outer space, would send recruiters all over the country to find talent to work at their Houston office. Oftentimes the students that they would recruit to come and work in this area would leave. It's hot, it's swampy. Not everybody likes Houston. It's not necessarily everybody's cup of tea, right? But when they participated in working with us, and we brought in local students that might have studied away from Texas or outside of Houston, and they were able to get a larger cohort of individuals that were interested in coming back to Houston, they were so happy to be able to work with us and facilitating local connections for folks that wanted to work here in our community. So, it's about training, it's about connections, it's about also utilizing the resources that we also have, because life happens. People have children, they get married, they, might have transitions in their life, they might have economic challenges. And so as people transition from youth to adult life, we want to be there too to help open doors, building social capital and connections, while giving them the opportunity to come back into the system, to get scholarships for training, fast track certifications, registered apprenticeship, but also supports for childcare, supports for supplies and equipment and other types of things to help them succeed in the careers that are available in our community. And it's through this conscientious use of design and listening to people and meeting them where they are that we can build a better system together.
Yeah, Juliet mentioned the wraparound supports, which I think have been so critical for us, and as all of these have. We'd love to hear from you. Which of these creates the biggest breakthrough where you work? Is it apprenticeships or work-based learning? employer co-design of training, stackable credentials, or wraparound supports. Gonna stay there?
Give it a few more seconds, maybe. Oh, here
Yeah.
comes another.
Well, there's no wrong answer here, right? You know, in our experience, the real turning point came when we were able to combine all of these, which of course is optimal. But you know, when the employer piece, when the co-design started shaping the stackable credential pathways, and those programs came with supports, that's, you know, when you start seeing outcomes. And like we'd actually like to share here a success story with you, and we'll break up this presentation a little bit with a video.
A free class to prepare paid apprenticeships and skilled trades are being offered by the Houston Gulf Coast Building and Construction Trades Council, and they are recruiting right now.
Oh, yes, they are. Consumer reporter Heather Sullivan caught up with some recent grads now working as paid apprentices who discovered the program. Actually watching us here at Fox 26, Heather.
Yeah, that's right. It was amazing to meet two apprentices who saw our story last year and are now earning a living while they are learning to become an electrician and a plumber. The council is looking for more candidates like them for this class that prepares people for high-paying jobs that don't necessarily require a college education.
And I saw your news article, and I was interested.
Eloy Zamudio says he was inspired when he saw our story last year about the 3-week apprenticeship readiness program by the Houston Gulf Coast Building and Construction Trades Council.
What you said about how I guess the older generation is trying to retire, and like that need for, I guess, new blood is what I kind of interpret it as, that need to fill the shoes and like kind of be a part of society and like be something greater than what you are.
He's now a paid apprentice with benefits, learning to become an electrician. From welding to pipe fitting to construction, skilled trades workers are highly paid and in demand as boomers in the field are retiring.
Whether it's in the commercial or industrial facilities, there is a huge demand of that workforce because we have a retiring age. And we're always constantly having to fill that workforce.
The 3-week apprenticeship readiness program prepares candidates for paid apprenticeships in a variety of skilled trades. The 5-year apprenticeships start at $15 to $25 an hour with health and pension benefits and yearly pay raises. Jamari Jimenez also saw our story and is now a paid apprentice in plumbing.
This is a great career. And you can learn stuff like this and even more. This is just my starter right now.
A starter for a new, high-paying, and in-demand career.
I do want to become a master electrician. That was something that was introduced to me in the apprentice apprenticeship program, and I'm like, that's like my goal.
And we wish them both the best of luck. Now, they are taking applications now. Here's the number to call, 832-429-1944. And I've got the link to the program for you on Sullivan Smart Sense on fox26houston.com. Really a great program if you're looking for a new career.
Ways find ways to help people out, Heather. Thanks a lot. 719 live lookouts.
So really excited to share that story and then just a little bit of background too. In I think it was 2017 when Hurricane Harvey hit the Gulf Coast region, that program didn't exist. And so Paul Puente, who was featured in that interview, went to the Texas Workforce Commission and said, what can we do to upskill persons to help us rebuild Houston? And so at the time I was working at the City of Houston for Mayor Sylvester Turner, and we received a grant from the Strata Education Network, and we utilized some of the funding to be able to support and braid funding with the Texas Workforce Commission to have several cohorts. And today, the Texas Workforce Commission, through the Gulf Coast Workforce Board, continues to fund the ARPMC3 program, which is a NAB2 program to help upskill individuals with a fast track 3-week program, and then they can go to one of the JATCs in the region. It's been fantastic. They've graduated hundreds of participants, and it's one of the examples of how we've been able to utilize the 3 areas that we focused on for our tri-agency work, which is education, healthcare, and building and construction. And all 3 have grown significantly since 2016, and the project continues to expand, as you can see with this particular program. And so the average growth rate across these various industries is 17%. And each sector offers upward mobility, as you saw in the video, strong employer partnerships, clear career ladders, but they also help build community. And so each one of the persons has a network of partners who are there to support the persons that participate so that way they can succeed. Leanne?
Okay, so I know we're getting close to the end of the session, but let's do one more poll here, or maybe a couple more. Of your own region's growing industries, which one faces the greatest workforce gap? Education, healthcare, and construction, like in Houston, or technology or something else?
Wow, each one of them.
Yep.
Oh, wait, hold on.
So education and healthcare seem to be the leaders here, and that matches what we've been working through, as Juliet mentioned, in our own region. The biggest challenges are not about demands as much as they are about perception sometimes. You know, and also the ability of the employers to stay engaged, and efforts that haven't, there've been a lot of efforts that haven't moved past the pilot stage. The video that you saw is a great example of one that has built a lot of traction and has moved beyond that pilot stage, has been very successful. We want to talk a little bit more about just these three industries quickly.
Yeah, so when we looked across these sectors, 3 things stood out. First, all showed high demand, real opportunities for advancement. Second, they showed local strong training partners and pockets of innovation. And third, there was a clear opportunity for on-the-job training and other types of immersive experience. Leanne?
Yeah, there were some gaps, as you might expect. Also, there's always been a persistent stigma or perception of these careers. I mentioned, these siloed pilots that never really got to scale. A lot of times there's been limited employer bandwidth to sustain some of these partnerships, but these findings have all informed, these regional recommendations that we'd like to share, and some practical steps to move from isolated pilots to aligned systems, because we think from what the path that we've been through, that it can actually happen and be replicable in any community.
Yeah, so our region recommendations focus on 5 big key ideas. 1, unifying the system, bringing education, workforce, employers to the same table, as we described earlier, using shared data, shared rhetoric, and a shared plan, not operating separately, and trying your best to break down those silos. Sometimes a phone call and just a meeting can set the stage for a lot of different opportunities moving forward. Modernizing how we invest, creating flexible approaches that allow us to use new models and scale things that work. I tell folks on the team, we might fail, we might take some risks, but at least we fail forward fast and we try to innovate. We always want to try something new, because if you keep on doing the same thing over and over again without new results, it's just the definition of insanity, right? So you also want to shift perceptions. You want to show careers in teaching and healthcare and construction that they are high impact, and you want to connect to people that are in those fields, so that way people can talk to folks that have that experience and can give them some real guidance and support to understand how they should navigate that system. And then, shifting perceptions, and expanding access, making more working learners have the supports that they need. We talk about, wraparound services and supports, mentoring, building the social capital, helping them in, and I tell folks, even with workforce readiness, that might seem very basic. It's not basic. It's something that's absolutely critical and needed for success. And it's also building on success and replicating the best practices and seeing how the system works one project at a time, and making sure that you're very conscientious about continuous improvement and looking at those cycles and developing strong processes and a roadmap that can help with future future developments of programs as well. And each one of this, it's about aligning, using data, embedding it into your system so that it works. And then I also tell folks, it's like making sure that you also break down the silos and thinking about youth as separate from adults. This is truly about having a re-envisioning of lifelong learning, so that way we can integrate systems and coordinate much better.
Okay, one last poll. Which of these actions would accelerate alignment in your own region? Is it using the shared data, convening partners, embedding goals into formal plans like a strategic plan, or building more youth on-ramps? We're going to stay at 100%.
Wow.
Convening partners. Well, for us, I think the alignment has, like we talked about, has been about the consistency of our efforts, with the data informing where we act. The convening has certainly been a key role for us in keeping us connected and finding that alignment. The plans and the youth on-ramps kind of make it sustainable, but that convening piece has been incredibly key for us, which is why we wanted to put that formally into the strategic plan as one of the 4 goals. We'd love to get any closing reactions from you before we take questions. If you want to pop this into the Zoom, and if you've heard something today you can use back home, give us a quick reaction. I don't know that we can see.
Yeah, I don't think that the folks are in the actual Zoom room, but they can use the chat to make comments or give feedback. And then also we have the Q&A. If folks have any questions, they can feel free to pop those into the Q&A, and I'll make sure to monitor that as well. Oh, we're getting a couple thumbs up.
Oh, thumbs up. Good. It's great to see and very encouraging. And we hope today, we've been able to show you this large scale alignment. It's not theoretical, but it's actually doable with the right mix of data, design, and persistence. We're a very large area. We're a microcosm of the macrocosm. But you can see in each one of our communities, they're all independent, unique, and we're just very, very proud to do this work. The best part is that what we've learned, these lessons, you can also do them yourselves. Wherever you are in your region's journey, your work contributes to a much stronger and connected system for all learners at every age level and the employers alike. So we want to thank you very, very much.
Yes, so with that, we'll move into any questions. I think we've got a couple, maybe 2 minutes left if anybody wants to throw in a question.
I'm not seeing any questions in the live Q&A right now. I will let you know if anything pops up. I will say this was such great information. It was so inspirational to see that video and that clip, to really see the faces of the folks that you are helping, right? And the folks that are able to, get into this new career, and I mean, paid internships, right? Like if we could all get a paid internship. And so that was so inspirational. And it's such a great reminder, like, sometimes when you get on the back end and you're developing these kind of programs, you don't always get to see faces and interact with the actual folks that are taking advantage of those programs. And so to be able to see that is and again, it's just about getting that information out there, right? Like people don't know unless you tell them. And so that's just so amazing, and it's so great, to share that type of information in this forum, because there are so many pieces from what you guys described that other folks will be able to take and to implement and to bring those ideas to their teams to make that difference. And so thank you guys for that information. That was really, really incredible.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to share.
Let's see. So we do have a question. What's the name of the research report or the type of research that assisted from the University of Houston for lifelong data, please?
What was the question again?
So the
You would-
research report or the type of research that assisted from the University of Houston for that lifelong data?
Yeah, so the ERC is an institution that exists, and we were able to use some of our grant funding to help design and develop this plan to pull data to help us with our tri-agency report. And then it looked at the CTE programs, mismatches, challenges, and it was extraordinarily revealing. We had, as a part of the regional convener conference, we had a bunch of educators from the different institutions of higher learning as well as the K through 12 system come in and learn about the data, and it was very revealing. Some of it was, just affirming, but other of it was very new to them as well. And so it was an example of being able to pull folks at different stages of education to see the impact of the work that was being done together.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I know we're right up on time. I just want to thank everyone for attending. I want to thank today's speakers for sharing such great information and such great content. For those of our attendees, please make sure you complete the evaluation that's attached to this session. Your insight is really helpful as we kind of develop things for future conferences. And again, thank you to Juliet and Leanne for all of that wonderful information. We really appreciate your time.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much.
Thank you.